Hailing frequencies open, and welcome aboard Treks and Tangents. I'm your co-host, Brian.
And I'm your co-host, Jackie. I'm the Star Trek newbie who treks off on tangents.
And I'm your Star Trek expert who is here to get the tangents back on track. Each episode we watch and talk about a different Star Trek episode, and this week we watched
Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 28, The City on the Edge of Forever.
Welcome back to another episode. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you everyone who's been liking and subscribing and commenting on the episodes. We really appreciate your support.
And definitely share everything. The Patreon and our Instagram is super fun.
Yes, but we'll start this week briefly by revisiting last week's Turbolift tease. That's where we gave Jackie the title of this week's episode, and Jackie, without any other information or context, tried to guess the plot. So, computer, what was Jackie's Turbolift tease last week?
Jackie's Turbolift tease last week was, while delivering supplies to another city, we find a new world that is kind of stuck in time, but it is just glorious, beautiful everywhere. And do we want to stay here, or do we want to go back onto the Enterprise to finish our mission?
So, Jackie, how accurate do you think your guess was?
It was terrible.
I don't think it was that terrible. I think if you pull some of the pieces apart, so they find a new world that is kind of stuck in time, and it's glorious and beautiful. I mean, that could imply either way. They talk a little bit about the planet where they find the Guardian, the time-traveling portal, and they do comment that it's, while in ruin, it is the ruin of a glorious civilization. And do they want to stay, or do they want to go back to the Enterprise? I don't know. I don't think they wanted to stay, but I definitely think Kirk wouldn't have thought it the end of the world if they ended up stuck in that place and time.
Kirk did tell them to wait some time, like there's no given time. And then each one would need to make the decision and go through the portal that the Guardian is, so that they don't have to be stuck in a place with no past or future.
Right. No resources, no need to starve to death. They would at least be alive at some point in history.
Who knows?
Which would have mean that Spock and Kirk would have been stuck in 1930s. I think it was Chicago. They don't really talk about it, but
I wouldn't know that. And we didn't really get the 30s until McCoy gets the idea from Edith.
yeah, that's kind of narrowed down to the 30s. There's, I think, commentary from Spock when they first arrive talking about the time period. They're able to narrow it down within a decade, I think.
Yes, through the Great Depression.
Right.
He called it barbaric.
Yes. Ultimately, what did you what are your initial impressions?
I really enjoyed this episode. I think that the actor that plays McCoy was able to go farther in his portrayal of McCoy. Instead of just being a regular old country doctor, he was able to be fast and on his feet when he was taking care of Sulu. And then when he was playing this crazy for lack of a better word, crazy person because of his injection of the medicine, he was able to, be wild and show it off. I just think it was great. And then we got to see his knowledge, McCoy's knowledge about just everything on he measured about human skulls. I don't know. He was just great. And then, of course, we saw Kirk and Spock do their own thing. Although I always find it funny that they're always alone. But anyways, I'm going off on another tangent here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting choice for them not to bring a security officer through. But then again, from a time travel standpoint, when your goal is to not interfere with the normal flow of things, maybe less people is better.
Yeah, what happens if one of those security people went in the wrong spot?
And I agree. Yeah, the plot point of allowing McCoy to have this manic paranoid episode because he was overdosed with the medicine accidentally lets us see a slightly different side of McCoy than what we're used to. And I ultimately like this episode as well. We'll put it at the top of the episode here just so that it can be used in context. This is the highest ranked episode for the original series, and it continually gets ranked as the top episode. It was ranked the top episode when in the 60s, when the original 3 seasons of the original series concluded and there was no more episodes, all the way through until just 10 years ago at the 50th anniversary fan convention. It again was ranked by the fans in attendance as the best original series episode of all time. And so I'm in agreement with them that it is probably, I don't know if I personally, if it's going to be the best episode of the original series, it is going to be the best episode that we've seen so far.
True.
For sure. And it is a very strong episode. It's also interesting that it's an episode that doesn't have a whole lot of science fiction to it. I keep thinking back as I watched the episode and as I was going through it again, if you take out the first 10, 13 minutes of this episode after they go through the Guardian and they travel back in time, and then if you kind of just cut out the little bit of science fiction that we have with Spock and his rudimentary computer as he's trying to read the timelines and figure out a couple things, this really is just a drama episode. This is kind of a romantic drama between Miss Keller and Kirk and those feelings, because we don't have aliens beaming down to attack them. We don't have random phaser firing. We don't have a lot of those firefights. We don't have huge machines that they have to contend with.
I do have to ask you though, when we see McCoy finally and he meets the milkman thief, the milkman thief finds a
His
gadget.
He
Is
finds
it a
his
phaser?
he finds his phaser.
So he pushes a button and turns blue. So where does he go?
He dies.
So Blue is dead?
He caused the phaser to overload. If you think all the way back to the cage, do you remember at the very end when Pike bluffs
Yes.
the big brain people by saying we're going to put our phasers into overload and they will cause an explosion? In this particular case, it didn't cause an explosion, but he, in fiddling with the phaser, causes the phaser to overload.
Got it. That was a weird addition.
Right. Ultimately, I think this is a great episode. There's lots of details to get into. So, Jackie, why don't you walk us through the episode?
Well, we're starting on the bridge, and they're going through an orbit that has tons of turbulence, and we learn that along with the turbulence, they're going through ripples of time.
I like this opening. I've commented before in the past. It's an opening that doesn't give away the entire episode or the entire plot. It just kind of draws us in slowly with little teases, as opposed to fully explaining the premise of why we're there. Because we don't know in this moment, in the opening, why they're in orbit around the planet, why these pockets of turbulence are being caused by these time ripples. We don't know any of this. So I like these openings where it draws us in and gives us kind of a fun little tease to the episode without explaining too much.
Well, then all of a sudden, Sulu's station explodes and he falls to the ground. And of course, we call for McCoy to come as fast as he can at this little, medical bag. And then, while we're waiting for that, Kirk goes to Yahara and asks her to start sending all of his logs from the past week to Starfleet Command.
Right. And why does he ask her to do that?
It was kind of like a way of making sure everything was safe in case there's a problem.
Right. In case they end up because up until that moment they had seemed to have the pockets of turbulence either able to ride them out or mapped out so that they can avoid them. I think Sulu's little console exploding was the first sign that these could pose a real danger to the ship. So yeah, they're sending all the data back in the event that they have to leave, they explode, whatever. The data at least is safe.
And of course, Spock, while all this is happening, he's excited because he's getting more data himself. So he's like fixed on his computer. McCoy comes and he's like, I'm going to give Sulu 2 points of this cortisone because his heart is fluttering. I don't know why he didn't just like give him an epi or whatever.
It's their version of that.
Oh. And Kirk comments how tricky it is. And then he, at the moment that McCoy has given his 2 milligrams lead, however they measure medicine there.
Yeah, they were talking drops. I think they refer to it as 2 drops. So let's pretend a drop is a milliliter.
Oh, well, why don't they have a little dropper? It'd be easier than a needle.
Because it's a hypo, so it's their version of an injection. So when they say that they're injecting 2 milliliters, it's programmed into the hypo spray. When they spray it or when they inject the person with it, the syringe, the hypo, knows exactly how much of the medicine to inject. And it could
Whoa.
be mixing it with saline, as another example, as a delivery agent.
So magically, Sulu wakes up and he's smiling, and you can really tell everyone is wearing makeup because Sulu has perfect dark eyeshadow on.
He has perfect dark eyeshadow on. Spock's makeup throughout the episode fluctuates.
He's green at sometimes.
Yes, definitely. It seems like different people were working in the makeup department this episode.
I thought that was funny. And then they go through another turbulence, and Kirk runs over to check on Spock. He's checking everybody, but as he turns around, McCoy has injected the rest of the medication that he brought into his own body. And now we're like, uh-oh, what's going to happen?
He injected himself on accident because
Yes, because the turbulence knocked him around. That's why he injected himself accidentally. So Kirk then calls for an emergency medical team. I didn't know they had one, so that's good to know.
I think McCoy was the initial emergency medical team to come up to deal with Sulu, and now that McCoy's out of commission, he's just calling for another emergency team. I would imagine that they have several because at any time they could have multiple things happen across the ship that would need that attention.
Totally. So this person comes up, and McCoy is running around the bridge yelling, murderers, killers. He's very scared of them. When the door opens to the turbo lift, he takes that option, pops in, and the medical person comes out. And now McCoy is loose on the Enterprise. And then, of course, we have a supplemental log from Kirk just telling what happened. And then all decks are on alert. And how long is this going to last? And what's going to happen to McCoy / his friend? He's worried. We see McCoy hiding, and then the 2 security team members just walk right past him. Like they're not really looking. It's like they're talking to each other. And then McCoy heads to the transportation room and sees a lone crewman, and he's pretty strong and capable, like 2 hits, and the crew member is on the floor.
Weird that someone would enter the transporter room and would just be ignored by the transporter chief. Doesn't even look around to see who enters the room.
Even in the past, we never really hear like a doorbell or a sliding of the door. Maybe they should get like a ding dong, like a ding when someone comes in.
They add a doorbell to quarters because we've made comment about that in the past where it seems like no one knocks. Everyone just seems to walk into their quarters, but they do add that. You do hear the door. There is that distinctive hiss when the doors open and close. It becomes more prominent later in series, of course, as production value goes up, but you do hear it in this instance when McCoy walks in.
Oh, I must have been focusing on, like, what are you doing, my friend? And so after he knocks out that crewman, McCoy just pushes all of the buttons up and turns on the telepad, and then he hops on and beams himself to who knows where. Now we jump to the bridge, and Kirk is continuing his rounds. He's going to Spock, asking about any knowledge that he has about this medicine. Kirk has found that there is little knowledge on what happens when someone has too much, but initially what they have found is that the person, they're violent, they think other people are going to harm them, even people that they know. It's like blank. They are just scared that they're in trouble. So they're running around. And this happens to be what McCoy is doing. The transport room has called to the bridge. They have found their crewman on the ground, injured, and now they are presuming that, yes, McCoy has left the Enterprise and he's on the planet. So Kirk calls for a landing party and runs off the bridge.
Little interesting that there's no alert that the transporter is activated when McCoy transports himself down to the planet. We see that in later Star Trek series. Whenever the transporter goes off and it's not expected, they get an alert all the way up on the bridge automatically. So it's interesting that they don't have that.
I mean, that would make complete sense. Kind of like when you open the door and it goes beep, beep. So we have the landing party come to life, their little molecules coming back together on the planet. And it's a party of 6. So we have Kirk, Spock, Yahara, Scotty, and then 2 security crewmen that sadly we never really get their names.
One is Galloway. Keen-eyed viewers can recognize him from past episodes.
So we have one without a name.
Correct.
Poor guy. And on this planet, it's just empty, but we have ruins. And those ruins are beautiful, by the way.
To go back quickly, why is Uhura as part of the Way team?
I was wondering that myself. All she is doing is like talking and recording things.
I guess she's serving in place of a yeoman.
Oh.
Because we see away teams before where there's a yeoman as kind of a assistant to the other officers of the away team. So maybe she's serving as an assistant in this case, but it seems really weird to send the communications officer down on the away team when there's not really a role that the communication officer would deal with, instead of just sending a yeoman, if that's what's needed.
Perhaps she and McCoy have like a special friendship and she can calm him down.
Maybe you're reaching to justify paying her day rate. So, again, I don't know why. Just a thought I had. Anyway, they're on the surface of the planet and they find the time-traveling donut gateway.
With lights in it. At first I was like, are we at SG-1?
It's not SG-1.
We did some episodes on that, so you should go check that on the Patreon.
Yes, Jackie's referring to when we were doing test episodes to flesh out the script and kind of practice for the podcast. We used SG-1 as the show. So all those test episodes are over for our crew members at Patreon, patreon.com/Treks and Tangents.
So we're walking around these ruins and we are seeing what they are. Spock has determined that this is the object that's playing with the time ripples, like it's having fun messing around.
Right. And then it starts talking.
Because Kirk asked a special question of what is it? And it's like it wakes up like one of those Furbies and it says machine or being. I am both. And then it keeps talking in riddles. And Spock is annoyed at this. He's like, can you just say what's up, like, straight?
Yeah. Spock just tries to... Well, Spock, I think, directly inquires to we haven't identified it yet. This is self-identified as the Guardian of Forever. So that is, when we say the Guardian, we refer to this object. And Spock directly poses to it, can you just give us a straight answer? And I think specifically he just says, is there a reason why you're answering questions and giving out information in riddles? And he responds, the Guardian,
Has a male voice.
it's a masculine voice. The Guardian responds back with, I'm not trying to answer in riddles. I'm just trying to give answers and information that is simple enough for you to perceive. So it's like, I'm not trying to be a riddler. You're just stupid.
And while all that is happening, we see that McCoy is hiding. Like, he's there, but he's hiding from them. And Yahara and Scotty, along with Galloway and the other security man, they're all looking for McCoy, along with what's happening. Like, they're looking for McCoy, and Spock and Kirk are figuring out what this Guardian is. And then Spock then realized that this is also a time portal, and the Guardian confirms it. But then he says, I'm glad you finally figured it out with your primitive knowledge.
Yeah, again, being super condescending in not intentional way, but
No, Spock was not happy with that. And so then the Guardian starts to show Earth's, like, what's happening on Earth really, really fast in all of the centuries in the past.
right. It starts pull back the curtain. They're playing clips from Paramount movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's where
funny.
that's where they get the footage, because the network has the rights to that footage. So they said, yeah, go ahead, use it, because we're the network the TV show's playing off of. But it's flashing through scenes that are centuries apart. And so it's quickly deduced by Spock, I think, that if you were to, as a time portal, if you were to jump through the time portal, it would take you to that period of time, but it's an incredibly inaccurate way to try to jump back into time. So it would display a scene from World War One. And if they stepped through the time portal, they would be in the time period of World War One, but exactly when, exactly where, not exactly what they see portrayed in the time portal, in the Guardian.
So Kirk asks the Guardian if he can slow the visuals down. And the Guardian says, no, what you see is what you get. And then this also is when McCoy pops out of his hiding spot and is yelling at them again how they're murderers and they're going to kill him. And everyone kind of like tackles him. And of course, Spock gives him the little Vulcan pinch, and he's now on the ground. But nobody stays with him to make sure he stays there.
Right. A little bit interesting, because you've got Spock, who apparently should be able to control, at least we've seen evidence of this in the past, where he can use different, I guess, either pinch different nerves or apply different strength of pressure, but he can somewhat control how much that pinch affects someone, how long they're going to be unconscious, and so forth. And so, interesting that Spock wouldn't just knock him out more completely. Maybe we can explain it away that McCoy is still high on this drug that is basically acting as an adrenaline.
Yeah, and the pinch he tried to do, he's like, he's my friend, but it didn't really affect him beyond like 2 minutes.
Right.
Oh.
But then, as they're still pondering what's going on, Kirk comes up with the idea that maybe they can use the Guardian to jump back in time before McCoy injected himself, because it's not really known if McCoy is going to survive this overdose. They hope he will, but they can't guarantee it. So they want to go back in time to kind of prevent it from happening. As they're debating the merits of this, McCoy wakes up. He, in his paranoid state, jumps through the Guardian time portal and puts himself into Prohibition, let's call it, Great Depression era of Earth's timeline. And that's when we get the realization that the Enterprise is gone. They no longer can communicate with the Enterprise. It is vanished. The Guardian confirms McCoy changed the timeline because, again, we're time traveling, so you got to give it some leeway. Something McCoy does after he travels back in time changes the timeline and erases, who knows, Starfleet. Maybe Earth no longer exists. It's no longer populated. The entire civilization is wiped out. Who knows? But they can't get a hold of the Enterprise. Time is drastically changed for them. Now Kirk is faced with the idea that they have to follow McCoy in order to right the wrong.
Spock believes that he can use his tricorder and enable it to make it possible that Kirk and Spock can jump through the Guardian at the exact point to ensure that they get to the spot that McCoy is at. They're hoping within the month, and they're crossing their fingers within the week. Like they're trying to get there before he does whatever he does. And then Kirk, though, turns to the other crew that are just waiting. They don't know what to do. Yahara is frightened, and he tells Scotty, "You're in charge, but wait some time, and if you don't hear from us, you guys should probably jump through the portal too. Otherwise, you're stuck here. Like, we don't have a way for you to be safe, but you don't have a future. You're just here."
Right. And it's also a directive from Kirk to them that no, don't just jump through so that you can survive. Jump through so that you can try to follow in our footsteps and affect the change that we failed to do. So it's a two-part mission. Try to fix the wrong if we can't, but if you guys fail, at least you're somewhere safe and not stuck here on this planet.
So now Kirk and Spock are on Earth, and of course they are in their space uniforms. And in the Depression era, we have seen the pictures in our history books and from our grandparents' pictures. We have old time cars. It's very, kind of sad. Lots of people just wandering. So, and also the people that are passing by Kirk and Spock are just like, they seem weird. And then Kirk is just like, Spock is trying to cover up his ears. And Kirk's like, "Hey, we'll be able to just explain that away. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, foreshadowing. But did you recognize the city they were in?
No.
So
I know there's a boxing match that they should go to.
So it's the same backlot that they filmed Miri,
Oh.
and it's the same backlot from The Return of the Archons.
Well, that's good. Everybody, got to reuse your sets.
Yes.
Save some money.
And I'm happy to finally see this lot used for an episode that's good, as opposed to Miri and The Return of the Archons.
Yes.
Two episodes that are not so good.
So they realize that along with the ears on Spock, they need to change their own clothes. And it just so happens to be around the corner in an alley, somebody is drying their clothes on their little fence around their porch, like an upper porch.
It's called a fire escape.
Thank you. Well, it's up there drying, and they're just gonna pop up there and grab them. And then when Spock's like, "That's stealing," Kirk is like, "I'm gonna be Robin Hood. I'll return it to the poor later."
Right. Always kind of funny that we get these time travel episodes and they recognize the importance of not changing anything, and then they immediately start to change things. I guess Kirk's initial thought of it's no big deal to steal the clothing, but in a moment we're going to see that they get caught and they have to run away from the cop. How do we know that doesn't change the timeline in any significant fashion?
Oh, you're right.
So,
Because, the cop does recognize things are fishy.
Yeah.
And, he's trying to do his job, and Kirk and Spock are trying to get out of there. And, Kirk goes along to say, "Well, this man's Chinese. I'm trying to help him out."
yeah, not exactly for a fantastic episode, not a scene that ages very well, I don't think. The fact that he explains Spock's pointy ears as, well, Spock's Chinese and he ended up in an accident with a mechanical rice picker. I think we can come up with a better explanation.
And don't forget that nice plastic surgeon who is a civilian, and he gave his time to fix Spock's ears, obviously really wrong, like a Doberman.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think it stands out. I mean, jump forward the next generation, anytime anyone questions Data's appearance, it's just he's from South America, which is so blatantly against a stereotype that it's so funny and that they go along with it.
Well, anyways, they run away from the cop and they run across the street, and Kirk makes it across, but Spock walks across and then he's almost going to get hit by a car.
One of so many foreshadowing moments to the end of this episode.
But it's so frustrating for me because isn't Spock, is he walking slow to investigate? Like, wow, what is this mechanical thing?
Yeah, there's a moment where he literally says fascinating as he's looking at the car. He is enthralled by this ancient machine.
But then it's going to kill you, dude.
And you say they run across the street. Fun fact, if you go back and look, it's the same alleyway they come back to. So they run away from the alley. They do another shot of them crossing the street, but then they film the next scene of them running into the same alleyway. It's identical with the setup and the fire escape and all of that.
It's really bad that they're tricking me.
It's what they're supposed to do.
So they're able to find shelter down in the basement of a large building, and as they start dressing, they're talking about their plan. And then we see a lovely young lady come down going, "Who do you think you are?" And then Kirk says, "Oh, my name is Kirk, and we're sorry to be down here. It's cold." And this lady, she's sharp as a tack. She's like, "It's not very nice to introduce yourself with a lie, or begin your relationship with a lie." It's amazing because she's like, "It's not even cold outside."
Right.
And so then then she meets Spock, and she has no reaction to his name because I think Kirk was trying to figure out what to name him.
Yeah.
But they just went with Spock.
Yeah, they absolutely 100%. There's that awkward pause where he goes, "Well, I'm Mr. Kirk, and this is Spock." And it's like, come on, make up a name.
Yeah, that was a weird thing, but everybody accepted it, probably because he does look kind of weird, even with the beanie on.
Right.
Sorry, no offense.
To who? Vulcans?
So, and we learn that her name is Edith, and she happens to have, she finds job openings for them, and they can start cleaning up and taking care of her place.
Which I would describe as a kind of soup kitchen, first and foremost. Secondary, she helps find random jobs for those that visit the soup kitchen, not just with her, but elsewhere. It's not a boarding house because no one lives there, but I think a soup kitchen is the best way to describe what she's running.
And so Kirk is like, "Awesome, thank you." And Spock asks, "How much does it pay?" And Kirk gives him a look, and he's like, "It's for my hobby, remember?"
Right, because what Spock is referring to is this plan that they've come up with to create a very primitive, rudimentary computer type system, because Spock's tricorder has recorded all of the images and data that was coming off of the Guardian before they jumped through. And Spock is hoping by being able to plug that into a more powerful computer to analyze the data, he'll be able to, I don't know, figure out when McCoy is supposed to appear, where he's supposed to appear, ultimately maybe some clues as to what event McCoy does or prevents that drastically change the timeline. So Spock is seeing this as an opportunity to gain access to this equipment and parts that he's going to need to build this computer.
And so we are now at the 21st Street mission that I forgot to tell you Edith runs herself. She's very proud of it. And we're in the dining room. Kirk and Spock get their dinner. They sit down, and this rude gentleman, is sitting next to them. And they're like, "This is not a free dinner. You have to listen to her, Miss Goody Two Twos, talk." And then they go on to say, like, describe her body. Like, she's a good looking woman. And then Kirk is like, stop talking.
Yeah, he makes it sound like, because this is before she starts talking, he makes it sound like she's going to preach to them, that there's maybe going to be some sort of lecture to them about how to live and their life choices and so forth. And so the meal comes with this price, but it's not quite that. It's something different.
More like a positive, you guys are gonna do great. Just keep your mind set.
Sure. And I guess some people could be annoyed by that. But yeah, it's more of a motivational speech. It's more about, hey, times are tough now, but we will see better times in the future. So you have to, as she says, she says you have, surviving is hard, but you have to survive so that you can see these better times later.
And what I love is that on top of all of that, she talks about what she thinks is going to happen in the future. That there's going to be control of the atom. They're going to go to space. There's going to be flying, like all sorts of things that we're doing now. But she had these ideas back in what we learn as 1930s.
Right. Which, of course, means Kirk is instantly infatuated with her.
I wrote Twitter pated.
Yeah. Suddenly, Kirk, well, it started in the basement when they first met and she gave them the job, but now definitely Kirk is drawn to her.
So as they're cleaning up, time to go, she asks them, do you have a flop? And they're like, excuse me, a what? And then we learn that a flop is a place to sleep or live, and it's only $2 a week. And Edith takes them with her because not to sleep with them, but that there's there's an empty room that they can rent for $2 a week.
Right. In the same little, it's an apartment. So in the same apartment building that she is currently living in. Again, her soup kitchen doesn't act as a board and care home of any kind or a bed and breakfast. So
No, it's just to feed and get people out of the cold. I love the idea of it. She's a very strong woman. So it's 3 days later, and we're in Kirk and Spock's room. Spock has put something that's fantastical. Like there's little bulbs everywhere connected to each other, and there's an energy, like a V with a energy going up and down. It's like a homemade energy wire. It's amazing. I love it.
it's the start of his rudimentary computer. So, and Spock is diligently working on that. Kirk comes into the room. He's got 2 bags of groceries, which is full of vegetables for Spock. Because remember, Vulcans are vegetarian.
I was going to ask that. I was like, why are there so many? He made a point to say veggies.
Yep, because he's a vegetarian as a Vulcan, but he's got food for them. He's got more parts for Spock. And I just wrote in my notes, they're making, assuming they do the same work every day, $1.50 a day, 10 hours. That's the original job that Edith Keller gave them. They're spending $2 a week on this flat. So, how cheap are electronic parts in 1930? I would imagine that they would be more expensive because I would consider them to be more of a luxury item.
Perhaps, because I mean, he does have a bag of them. But I think, though, it's a joke when Spock says, I need platinum. I need just about 6 pounds of it.
Right. Definitely ridiculous. Definitely puts a little bit of perspective that we're not just getting all this money and electronical parts magically, but again, I don't think they're buying all this stuff at those wages.
No, it's probably a little sneaky from the soup kitchen.
Well, we do see that they're not above that idea.
Exactly. But then Edith like barges into the room because she's like, you come now and I have 5 hours of work for you at 22 cents. And she sees what Spock has made and she's like, whoa, what is that?
Right. And very in character with her. She's not afraid of it or nervous about it. It's pure curiosity. So
Yeah, she's loving it. And then Spock's like, "Oh, I made it with bearskin and stone knives."
yeah, he tells her exactly what he's making. It's a form of a computer, but and she just takes it in stride and is just like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, do you want the work? Come with me.
And off they go. So now we're back in the dining room, and while they're cleaning up, probably what their 55-cent job is, and Spock notices that these men are using like those fine tools that you use like in a clock or something that has the cogs and the gears. And he's like, whoa, look at that. Fine tools. And so next scene, we see Spock turning the combination lock.
Right, which didn't exist in 1930. This was little fun fact. This particular lock was invented in 1935, 1937. So after when this episode would supposedly take place, and the front of the lock is of a plastic, but back when this would have came out in the 30s, it would have been a metal face.
Well, that's interesting. They could have at least colored it.
Right.
So we got to use the fine tools because he opened up the lock.
Right. Specifically, he forces the combination with his stellar Vulcan hearing, and he can hear the tumblers fall into place.
I don't know why they're always in the basement. Are they just always like feeding the furnace? Is that like the main point?
That's the main source of heat. So they're down there. That's at the end of this scene. Spock feeds more coal or charcoal into the furnace to keep it going. So I'm assuming that's why they're down there.
Huh. So they're down there, and Edith comes down saying, "You broke into that box that had a lock. How did you do it? I need to make sure these tools are replaced." And then Kirk like calms her down. He's like, "He will return them, but it's my word. Like we just need to use them."
Right, and no indication of how Edith knew that Spock had broken in, because this is the same night.
Yeah.
Because Spock's intention was to use them that night at the end of their shift and then put them back in the morning where no one would notice they were gone.
Exactly.
So in this short span of time, how did Edith know that Spock had broken in and taken the tools? No idea.
She popped up behind a counter.
Right. But as Kirk explains away the theft and charms her, she falls for the charm. And she goes, well, I'll ignore it, but you have to walk me home. So we get a little bit of a scene where they're walking together. They hold hands. Clearly, they're starting to fall for each other and definitely developing this more romantic connection.
So with the fine tools, there is even a larger space that's taken up by all the tricorder work that Spock has worked on in their rented room. And the tricorder is able to show the future for 6 years, because also Spock kind of kept it to him until he saw this. Earlier, when he was working with this tricorder, it shows that Edith was killed in a traffic accident. We don't know how, but she doesn't live. And then and this other viewing that he sees, 6 years later, it shows that she's gone on to become this great leader of peace, and she meets the president. Like, what is her future supposed to be? And that's how we learn she is the target. I think that's a bad word, but this is what happens if we don't fix what McCoy messed up.
Right. So they see two possible timelines. So I'll just comment and say we're going to condense some of this for time. They originally posed this idea of Edith is that focal point where time diverges into two separate timelines, and Edith is that central point, and it's a matter of does she live or does she die? And at first, they don't really point out which is which. It could be either. They don't know which is the correct version of the timeline to make it happen. And I kind of like that for a time travel story, because so many timelines or so many plots that involve time travel very much just point out, no, she has to die. So that little bit of uncertainty in the beginning is great. we do eventually, to break it all down, she either dies in the car accident in 1930, which is what's supposed to happen, or if she's allowed to live, she meets with the president, she becomes the leader of this national peace movement, which sounds great, but it unfortunately means the United States is so focused on peace, they enter World War II even later, which means Hitler is given enough time to develop atomic energy. He develops the atomic bomb, and he does so first, which means he then gets to conquer the world. And that's the timeline where the Starfleet and the Enterprise no longer exist.
And then outside, we see, the old time milkman delivering milk. And someone is just waiting as the milkman delivers, and then he leaves. And then that person runs and grabs the milk that was left for a family or a person and steals it. And then out pops McCoy. He's in the middle of the street and he's yelling, "Murderers!" And then he sees a human and he's like, "What planet am I on?"
Yeah. Yeah, the pull back the curtain, the name of the character is in scripts is just referred to as Rodent for some reason.
Well, that makes sense. The rodent steals stuff.
Yeah. But there's a whole confrontation in the alleyway. This is where we get to see the big range of acting for McCoy, where he's fully in the throes of this overdose. Because again, in McCoy's existence, this is moments after he runs through the time portal of the Guardian. And ultimately, he has these delusions. He ends up passing out in the alleyway. The thief character, Rodent, picks his pocket, steals his phaser, overloads the phaser, and kills himself, like we talked about earlier.
And now we are at the mission breakfast, and McCoy happens to walk in and he comments how great that the coffee smells. And Edith welcomes him but takes him into a second room to lay down because he is very sweaty. He has so many spots on his face. Poor guy, he's been through it. So she takes him away into the side room that we haven't learned about, and she has him lay down. So while she's gone, Spock takes her place. It's like you guys could have seen each other.
Right.
And so she calls him down in the side room. McCoy doesn't want to just lay down. He wants to know where he is. He's afraid that if he asks the special question of "where am I?", then it will be either he's demented or unconscious. But he's guessing he's on Earth, 1920. And then she corrects him, Edith, by saying, "Why don't you just say 1930?" So she just keeps going. And as McCoy goes on to say that he is with the USS Enterprise, he is Leonard McCoy. And Edith is like, "I have a friend that talks just like you. You guys should meet." And McCoy answers that he is a surgeon, not a psychiatrist.
Right. And again, it kind of shows Edith's character a little bit as someone who maybe is a little more advanced because she doesn't really.
She's so open.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, to a sense, McCoy's talking what would be gibberish to her. And she just takes it all in stride and goes, "Yeah, that's just kind of how, that's how my friend talks, or that's how I know people who talk like that." And she's referring, of course, to Kirk and Spock.
And I love how she's like, "Your uniform isn't really U.S. Navy, though, but that's okay."
Yeah. Again, completely open-minded to this stranger in a strange set of clothing.
So Edith is walking down a hallway, and then she goes to the stairs, and as she goes down, she starts to trip. And yay, Kirk is in the right spot, and he saves her from death because she could have fallen and broken her neck.
Right.
And she thanks him with a kiss. And Spock's like, "Oh, I better not, watch this."
Right. And then Spock has the confrontation with Kirk, was like, if you just let her fall, she would have died and it would have been fine. And Kirk was like, "No, it's not time yet." How interesting would it have been, just as a side note, what if In fact, there wasn't any knowledge about the auto accident. They just knew that she was supposed to die.
Oh.
What if instead they're all focused? What if the plot twist was they're all focused that McCoy causes the deviation in the timeline? But what if it turns out that they go back in time to chase McCoy, and in fact, the pivotal moment that changes everything is when Kirk stops her from falling down the stairs?
Oh, that's a good one.
So, and now that they've changed history and Kirk has saved her, they have to find a way to naturally allow her to die so that the timeline can get fixed. That would have been an interesting time
Oh,
time
but it
travel
would have
episode.
been like a drama thriller because, like, they had to push her in front of the car or
Yeah,
kick her off the side of a cliff.
and what if that's how the episode ends? Is Kirk takes her on the date to the movies, and while they're walking to the movie theater, he pushes her in front of a car.
Ah.
That's dark as hell. I'm gonna note that down. We're gonna as we rewrite fan episodes. That's gonna be one.
So she goes back to the side room and she checks back on McCoy, and now he's awake and alert. Like he's like a different person. The cortisone seems to have lessened, and his body has metabolized it so where he can be almost normal, quote unquote. And then he's just grateful for her assistance. And he asks, just like Kirk and Spock, he's like, how can I thank you for what you've done for me? You're so nice. And she's like, oh, well, I don't know about tonight because I'm going to see Clark Gable movie. And they're like, who? It's so funny these guys don't know Clark Gable.
Right. Well, Clark
But then,
Clark Gable also doesn't really become a prominent actor until later.
oh, okay. So I was going to ask you, how far out are they? Like, is it just a couple years or is it like thousands?
When does Star Trek take place in the Star Trek timeline?
Yeah, like if this is 1930 and they don't know who Kirk Gable is, I'm assuming it's just like passed along. So I don't know. Maybe I'm asking a weird question.
Star Trek takes place 300 years into our future.
Oh,
So this would be
wow.
closer to 300. This would be closer to 350, 400 years in the future.
No wonder they don't know who Clark Gable is.
Nope.
Interesting. Okay. So now they're outside. So they keep jumping around, but the mission is like the focal point. But Kirk and Edith are going to the movie. They can still make it in time, and they're crossing the street. There are no crosswalks. And Kirk makes it across the street, and Edith is behind him. And then McCoy comes out, and they all are like, McCoy, you're back. And Kirk runs back across the street to like hug McCoy because, of course, they think that he's still crazy. They haven't noticed he's normal.
Right. Again, they had no idea if it was possible for his body to naturally, his body's metabolism to work through the high dose of the drug that he got, the cortisone. And so, yes, they are all ecstatic to see that not only he's arrived, that they finally met up. Because again, they also didn't know if they time traveled to the correct location. It could have been anywhere. So they're just so excited that they've met up with him, that he's alive, that he's doing well, and now they can figure out what to do to save the timeline.
And so Edith is in the middle of the road and a car is coming, and McCoy's like, I'm going to go save her. And Kirk has to grab McCoy and just like hug him. They have to keep him in place. And Kirk's like so sad. You can see his face is like his eyes closed. Like, I don't know. It's sad because like he has to save his bestie, and yet his girl, she has to die in a traffic accident. So we are back on the planet, and they all three are jumping back from where they were through the Guardian onto the planet.
Right. To go all the way back to the beginning before they travel through, the Guardian makes the comment that if they are successful in reversing the action that changes time, the Guardian would pull them back. That's how to explain how they get back to their own time, the Guardian makes the decision to pull them back. There's no little quest where they have to go find the portal. I'm pointing it out so that it's not like Stargate where they have to go find the Stargate.
So he'll let them go back to Enterprise safely.
Right.
And Scotty's like, you just left a minute ago. How are you back already?
Right. Again, because the Guardian pulled them back to pretty much the same moment in which they left.
And they do say they were successful, and the Guardian tells all is well. And then we hear Yahara tell Kirk that the Enterprise is ready to beam them up, and Kirk's like, let's get the hell out of here.
Yes.
I question, is the man who, or voice that is the Guardian, the man and the Wizard of Oz? They have like the same voice.
So the Wizard of Oz, again, from 1939.
Oh.
So almost 30 years before was Frank Morgan, the voice and eventually the
Wizard. Okay.
And in this episode of Star Trek, the voice of the Guardian is a gentleman named Bart LaRue. So different voices.
Well, they did so well.
But with all that being said and with the credits rolling, Jackie, what were your final thoughts to Season 1, Episode 28, The City on the Edge of Forever?
I loved it. Like, I could have even used more. Like, it just, everything happened so beautifully, and then it ended, and I was like, no, maybe they can have a way of contacting each other. Even if, I don't know, my brain was like, oh, poor Kirk.
Yeah, and there's going to be other episodes that don't necessarily involve time travel, but some of them do. But where one of the characters falls in love with or becomes infatuated with another, and you know from the beginning there's no way that this is going to end up well. But it's a good plot. It's a good episode. It's a great episode. Again, top rated episode across all of the original series. So yeah, I like it. We'll wrap up our final thoughts here while it's still fresh in our mind with our favorite quote from the episode. Jackie, what is your favorite quote?
Mine was, a lie is a very poor way to say hello. And that was Edith when she was meeting Kirk and Spock. And it's so true. Like, they could have just said, sorry, I didn't mean to burst into your basement.
All right. Mine is going to be at the end of the walk home, their first little true romantic interaction between Keller and Kirk. And Miss Keller starts by saying, I think that one day they are going to take all the money they spend now on war and death. And Kirk finishes her thought and says, and make them spend it on life.
That's beautiful too.
Because it kind of encompasses, I think, Miss Keller as a character and fully wraps up her view of the world and her hopes and what she thinks that mankind will achieve, which is ultimately what draws Kirk to be attracted to her.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
But I do have some Tribble tidbits or our fun facts to the episode. And why do we call them Tribble tidbits, Jackie?
Because they're fabulous.
Because Tribbles are both fun and sometimes not so fun. Our episode aired first April 6, 1967. In that scene where Kirk and Miss Keller are walking home, or Kirk is walking Miss Keller home, and the first time that they hold hands, we see they pass by Floyd's Barbershop, which is the exact same barbershop from the Andy Griffith Show, because it's the same backlot that they film on. In fact, the filming of this episode went a day and a half over schedule. So they lost access to the lot because the Andy Griffith Show had booked it for filming. So all of the scenes that you see where McCoy arrives and he meets the Vagrant and the Vagrant steals the phaser and ends up evaporating himself. That was all filmed in a back alleyway of the lot that normally is not used for filming. It's kind of just behind the scenes because that's all they had access to when they ran over their allotted time to film the episode.
We run over time a lot.
The writer of the original script, Harlan Ellison, asked that he be credited for the episode under his pseudonym, Cordwainer Bird. This was a subtle way for him to distance himself from the final product because he was not happy with all of the drastic changes that took place in the rewrites and the final episode that was created. This request was denied by Gene Roddenberry because Roddenberry knew that's what he was up to and knew that this was a subtle way for the writer to let other writers know that in this time period when science fiction was written, that was kind of the common thing was scripts would be written and it would end up getting rewritten so much and it ended up being stuff that wasn't aligned with the original script, and so writers were trying to distance themselves from the work. Roddenberry knew that this would have been a signal to other writers and perceived as, oh, Star Trek is just another science fiction show that is butchering scripts, and it would have driven good writers away. So Roddenberry said, no, you're going to get credited by your real name or not at all. Ellison's original script included a drug-dealing member of the crew fleeing and getting caught instead of the whole overdosing of McCoy. That would have been swapped. Rodent, the vagrant who ends up overloading the phaser, was supposed to be a one-legged World War I veteran named Trooper, who would still die in the episode. And the Enterprise wouldn't disappear. They would beam back up to the Enterprise and find that it had been replaced with a pirate starship named the Condor, and it would have been crewed by a pirate crew. The budget for this episode at the time was $245,000, adjusted for inflation. That's almost $2.5 million in 2026. It is the most expensive episode for the first season, and it is the most expensive episode across all the seasons of the original series if you don't count the original 2 pilots that were filmed.
That's really interesting because it doesn't seem like it's overly expensive.
Right. Because if you think about it, because it's all filmed on a lot, so they're not building sets, except for the Guardian.
And there's no like giant alien they have to put away. Like it just seems a lot for a beautiful episode.
I guess maybe costume rentals, because there's a lot of extras and
Oh yeah, probably the extras in the cars and stuff.
yeah. So the final line said by Kirk when he says, "Let's get the hell out of here," was aired over the objection, but not opposition from the network because it included the word hell. It is only one of 5 times that word is used in the original series. Kind of funny when you think about it, because then you jump forward all the way to today with Discovery, New Worlds, and Starfleet Academy, where they're just dropping F-bombs. So,
Yeah, and hell is used as a light word.
right. And then the scene where the man in the alley is overloading the phaser and he ends up killing himself accidentally is, or at least was, in the 70s when this started to run reruns in syndication. That scene was often removed from the rebroadcast. So
That makes no sense. He just turns blue and goes away.
you are probably one of the only people who watches that and think they disappear. It is pretty well picked up that he dies.
Whoa. See, I just tried to wish happiness like he was stuck in a portal himself.
That's your version of happiness, I guess.
He needed milk.
And those are your Tribble tidbits. This is where we share our episode ranking, where we pretend the episode is a member of our crew and what Starfleet rank we would assign to them based on how much we enjoyed the episode. A higher rank means we found the episode more entertaining when we watched it, but we also consider the episode a more important member of our crew for our fictitious starship. And the opposite is true. A lower ranking episode means we find the episode less entertaining, but we also find it a more disposable member of our crew. Our enlisted ranks at the bottom start with ensign, lieutenant junior grade, and lieutenant, all of which we can have an unlimited number of episodes at those ranks. And then our officers, we limit the number we can have in each tier. We can have 7 lieutenant commanders, 5 commanders, 1 captain, a 10 out of 10 episode, and we have a spot for an admiral. This would be the capstone episode, the pinnacle episode of the season. If none of that makes any sense, we do post a graphical representation of all the episodes that we've ranked over on our Patreon. Again, patreon.com/Treks and Tangents. It's free for anyone to view, and it will be published on Wednesday, the day after this episode goes live. Jackie, looking at your starship, the USS Galactic Glitterbee, what rank do you assign this episode?
I'm going to bite the bullet and make it my admiral.
Okay.
I have a lot of work to do on my bottom tiers, but at this time, I just loved the episode. It was right on through. Like, I didn't have any questions, and, well, except for the guy who disappeared. But, yeah, I loved it.
All right. I'm going to follow suit just like we did last week. We both gave the same rank to the episode. This is going to be my admiral for my starship, the USS Cosmic Shark. I knew kind of going into this, at least when we were getting through the first half of the season, that this was going to be my admiral episode.
Cheater.
I know the episodes, so I kind of have an idea going into the season what I'm going to rank. It does change a little bit because it is partially based on how entertained we were when we watched it in the moment, but this is an entertaining episode.
Yes.
There's just really not going to be any other episode that beats it. I'll point out we don't have to have an admiral to the ranking system. We can go a season without an admiral. I don't know that we will. But yeah, how can you not rank this episode as the top episode for the season?
Right.
As of this recording, this episode over at IMDb, again, is the top ranked episode. Is, as of this recording, 9.2 out of 10.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of episodes that are above a 9 on that scale. Lots of 8s. Anything an 8 or above is a great episode, I think, on the IMDb rating system. Anything
Agreed.
7 is entertaining and okay. Anything below a 7 is going to kind of be problematic.
I can agree with that.
But those are our ranks. Again, as a reminder, we will post that graphical representation over on our Patreon, patreon.com/Treks and Tangents, free for everyone to view. We'll be back next week to trek through another episode, and Jackie, next week's episode is the season finale of season 1 of the original series.
Whoa. No. We have to have more. Are we really all the way at the end?
All the way at the first season. There's 2 more seasons.
Wow.
Of 30-ish episodes.
It's just like flown on by.
Yes, for Jackie, it is flown on by. It's flown on by for me too. Maybe a little slower because I do all the editing. So
you work really hard. You do a good job.
Yes, thank you. But before we go,
you made that cute little picture for the triple that I have not read it yet.
Yeah. As we come up, I don't know what we're gonna do with that. It'd be nice to. I made a little anatomy poster for Tribbles because Tribbles seem to be the mascot of our podcast, even though we've never seen an episode with a Tribble in it yet.
No,
but
that's so cute.
Yeah, made a little anatomy image of a Tribble. I don't know what we'll do with it.
It popped out of the book. You did a good job.
We'll have to do some research. I've got some ideas for it, but. For our Turbolift tease for next week, I'll give Jackie the title of next week's episode, the season finale, and Jackie, without any other information, will give a guess to the plot of the episode. So, Jackie, next week's episode is entitled Operation Annihilate! Exclamation point.
Unbeknownst to them, the Enterprise is being hunted by a very angry, mean, rough alien species that we're yet to learn about. And that is their orders to do in order to destroy the Enterprise.
And tune in next week to see if Jackie's episode guess for the plot is correct. Tune in next week for the season finale of Star Trek, the original series, and our season finale for this. I personally am looking forward to switching over to season 2. The entire numbering system for the episodes, with the cage being, is it episode 1, is it episode 0, has really screwed up a lot of things. So looking forward to getting through next week's episode and then starting season 2 for that switch over in episode numbering.
We'll have to have a party.
Yes. But if you want more show information, you can find and directly support our podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/treksandtangents. Over on that Patreon, we also do a bonus episode each week on the episode that we just watched, where we do a deeper dive into 1 or 2 topics, questions, and so forth. And I think this week for our Star Note bonus episode, we're just going to have a general discussion on this and go deeper into our thoughts and what we liked about the episode. So we're not going to be a super structured episode this week, but those are available. Those bonus episodes are available for every member of the Patreon, including the free membership. So follow us over on Patreon and absolutely enjoy those episodes and catch the back catalog of those bonus episodes. We're catching up slowly on the back catalog, but there's still a good handful of bonus episodes there as of this moment.
Yeah, we're chugging along.
You can also follow us on x.com at Treks_tangents. We're on Instagram and Blue Sky as Treks and Tangents. Jackie, where can people find you and what are you up to?
I am mostly on Instagram as Jaboom, JIBBOOM. On there, I have everything from my music to fashion as a mid-sized person, weight loss information, makeup, my service dogs, disability awareness. I got it all on there. So I will look forward to seeing you.
And you can watch me stream a variety of video games over at twitch.tv/PiratePoundTown. On YouTube, I post video games and other random content on my main channel, Pirate Pound Town. Also on YouTube, some coin collecting and other hobby content at Pirate Treasure Hunting. I post socially on Blue Sky at Pirate Pound Town, and I can mostly be found on Instagram under Pineapple Cannibal. Links to all social media mentioned can be found in the episode description. Thank you everyone for tuning into this week's episode. We hope you had fun like we did, and we will see you all next week.
And don't worry, your 15 cents does get bigger as the years go on.
End transmission.